Hey guys, welcome to Sopi Mix Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para conan abrir. Sopi Mix Studio é plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde está. Sopi Mix Studio, powered by Subway. Passa na Subway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Cucheta localidade Ronde Aruba. Nós está cerca de Ibo. Subway. Swing Masters. Organizando events, conferences ou weddings. Mister de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing ou flatscreen. Swing Masters está claro para ser boa fiesta éxito. Swing Masters. E agora, Sopi Mix Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba está apresentar.
Sincerely Carolina is powered by Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Aveeno, Gelatissimo, Paper Sisters, and Purina.
Hi, happy Monday. Welcome to Sincerely Carolina. So just right off the bat, I'm going to say that this episode is going to be in English because we have an international guest today. Dr. Kelly Hancock is visiting once again. And so yes, she's visiting from the US, so we will have this conversation in English, but I hope parents that you're listening, teachers, childcare center teachers, and anybody who has a tiny person between the ages of 0 and 4, hopefully we can share some valuable information. But before I continue, I just want to say thank you to my sponsors. Thank you for allowing me to have these conversations. So thank you goes to Lindy Boutique, to Proframe, Aveeno, Purina, Paper Sisters, and Gelatissimo. Remember that I will have different giveaways today. So remember to like and share, but also comment, interact with me. And be pending for Wednesday's Learn and Win quiz. So I will be making a quiz based on today's episode. And if you get the answer right, you participate to win. And depending on how hard the question is, I'll allow more than one winner. So, but I'll decide that on Wednesday. But anyways, also before I continue, I shared something yesterday that has gotten more attention than other posts that I have posted, and I want to thank all of you who have reached out to me either privately or publicly that felt identified with what I shared, but either were too scared to share it yourself or too uncomfortable, or maybe were in a work position where you couldn't really speak out. The whole goal of Sincerely Carolina is to talk about things that might be a little uncomfortable, but the goal is to become better together. That means keeping everybody in mind, making sure that, our children feel safe in the environment that they are. So again, thank you for that support. I have to say that I was a little nervous sharing yesterday, but I reached to a point where I truly believe in what I'm sharing here and the awareness that I'm trying to create. So I wanted to stand by that as well. And I have to say I'm happy I didn't get too many trolls. But a reminder to trolls that I do not enjoy discussions in the comment sections, so you will get deleted and blocked and whatever, okay? This is an environment to learn, and if you are not ready to learn yet, that's okay, but we are not gonna have arguments in the comment section, okay? So yeah, that was that. So we will continue. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please head on to my Instagram page once this episode is over, and I am sure you will figure it out real quick. But yes, so today we're going to talk about early intervention. And before we continue to that, I will give the chance to Anouk and Kelly to reintroduce themselves because we have already met them. But yes, Kelly.
So hello, everyone. I am Dr. Kelly Hancock. I am at the University of Missouri, Kansas City Institute for Human Development. I work as a senior research associate. I come with a background in speech pathology and behavior analysis, education, and adult learning. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about early intervention. I have been involved in the early intervention program in my state in the United States for a very, very long time and have worked with children of various abilities who qualify for services. I've worked with the families. I understand how emotional it can be. I understand how families can have lots of questions. Providers can have lots of questions. Daycare teachers can have lots of questions. So feel free. I always say there's only smart questions, and you need to be asking. If you're not asking questions, chances are something is wrong. So feel free.
Thank you, Kelly, for that introduction. And we're going to touch on some things that you mentioned there. But before we continue, Anouk.
And we are happy to have you here again, Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
My name is Anouk Eman, and for those who do not know, I finished my master's program in early intervention in autism and sensory impairment. Dr. Kelly was my professor when I was doing my master's program, and we've been talking about it for such a long time, and it finally happened. So we are here in Aruba working on an early intervention system for children with special needs.
Yeah, so just a reminder from the last time I was here, and I will reiterate this for Anouk. And as we have worked on this, Carolina, you know, there is nothing better for a professor than to see a student's dreams come true.
Yes.
And the fact that this project has been on Anouk's mind for years, and I just feel incredibly honored to be part of it and to be able to share my experiences with everyone in this country. It has been wonderful, and I look forward to many more visits and opportunities in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
So again, of course, Anouk has been very persistent, to say the least. And I was reminded last week by our fellow board members in Fundación Autismo Aruba how basically we really like pushed this to start moving. So Anouk had been in Aruba for a while, and as things move in Aruba, they move slowly sometimes, a lot of times. So we were really struggling because we were so happy as a foundation to finally have that specialist here on the island. You know, she's young, she just studied, she graduated with honors. So that for us was a huge moment where we really wanted to get her on board and start working with children. But it took some time, and it's not just some time, you know, on the perspective of like, okay, where is she going to work? How is she going to work? Budgets and all that stuff. But also of getting people to understand the importance and to push it as well. Because we have learned a little bit of a hard way as an organization that anytime you want change, even if you have people on the top, right, either in organizations or in government on board, you still need the people to validate it. And that is something that we struggled a little bit with because it's scary, you know. We're talking about children 0 to 3 or 0 to 4. And yes. So we did a presentation, and I told Anouk, you have to come and you have to talk. And Anouk was like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm like, listen, I invited people from everywhere and people need to hear our professionals. And so we had everybody talk. So that was the first time that we had Byron give like a big speech. And that was like, Byron's like, you know, talking from his own perspective, like his start as an ambassador. And that was like almost 3 years ago. Now that I think about it, it's crazy. But and I remember that there were questions, and I kept telling Anouk, like, just stand up and answer them. And then people were pleasantly surprised because it was like an epiphany, like, oh, we have this professional in Aruba? Oh, and then I remember a minister came up to me, and he was like, Carolina, like, I almost feel ashamed that I didn't know. It's like, what do you need? What do you need? And I'm like, I need you to give her a job. It's like, I need you to make her start working and giving children, you know, the support that they need. And, you know, it started a little bit as a joke. And I told Anouk, and she's like, right. But here we are, you know, almost 3 years later.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when I got the job, I was like, hey, I need Carolina on the
It was so funny. But it's getting people on board, and I'm sharing this little story because I want people to know that this did not happen yesterday. Like, Anouk did not come up with this idea yesterday. She studied for years. She got her master's degree, so it was a build up. Anouk's cousin was the ex-president of Fundación Autismo Aruba, who also pushed Anouk to focus on this area. So Anouk was in class with her cousin, who is an autistic young adult right now, right? So it has been years of working towards this. And really the past 3 years is when it has propelled. And now we are at the point where we can say that we have a small pilot project that we can start with. So segueing into that, Anouk, as the leader of that project, can you tell us a little bit about that project? Where you start?
You start at the beginning and the foundation. Please keep that in mind.
Where do we start? Because sometimes I get confused to where was the beginning. I just remembered that I have to say my boss, Sue Andras, has been very, very supportive. Her heart is really, she cares so much for these children. I always say her heart is in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Without her, I wasn't able to do this project. So I remember having the conversation with her, and I said, my professor at Lindenwood always said that she was very interested in helping us here. And she's like, yes, bring her. Like, yes. And I was like, really? And I feel like that's where it really started, because I just mentioned you on WhatsApp, and you were like, oh, wait, we need to Zoom.
We need to
talk. So we started having conversations, and little by little, we actually started talking about, okay, when are you going to come to Aruba? Mm-hmm. And it was kind of difficult because we did not really know how to start the pilot project, because we didn't have anything. We have no data.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, let me repeat myself. We have our first data.
Yes, now we do, but then we did it.
Yes, we will come back to that. So we had nothing. Again, Dr. Kelly wasn't going to come to Aruba and just copy, the system that we have or that they have in the United States and just copy it here and be like, okay, figure it out, it's going to work. No, we really had to adjust it to our culture, which made it very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So when Dr. Kelly and Dr. Mike came first to Aruba, which was in June, and which makes it even more crazy, is you guys were here in June and you're here again.
Yes.
The same year.
Yes.
So for Aruba, I'm always surprised how fast. I think it's because we're a dynamic team, and we have, young professionals that we are really passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys came here, and we contacted all the stakeholders that we think form an important part of this project. And that was in June was when we formed PIRA, which is Plataforma Intervención Trempang Aruba. Right, Kelly?
That's correct.
She always tells me, Anouk, I don't know how to say PIRA. So that's how
it's PIRA.
That's how PIRA formed. And we kind of did a research. What specials do we have in Aruba? What is it that we are missing in Aruba in order to, start the pilot project correctly? Mm-hmm. And I must say, little by little, we are, the PIRA is getting bigger, because little by little, we go to a foundation or we go to a department, and they're like, hi, did you guys contact these people as well, or this organization? And we're like, oh, no, but it would be nice for them to be on board. And I think it is going to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. And that's our first step. I don't know if you have something to add, Kelly.
So I will say part of the discussion actually came out of the first podcast that we did. I have to say, Carolina shared with us that a mom said, hey, I'm in need of, and it's not here on the island. Mm-hmm. And that immediately got me thinking about, we have unmet needs for not only young children, but for families. And that's huge. If you have unmet needs, learning cannot take place. And so that was a big aha moment that came out of this podcast that has actually been at the forefront of my mind through the entire process since the last time I was here. It's really important to know, and I'm not a mind reader, to know what a family needs, that they have to communicate that.
Exactly.
And so, I always welcome the comments, the questions. And I ask the question, what do you need? The biggest problem with that question is a lot of times the answer is, I don't know.
I was going to say that.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know what I need because I don't know what I don't know.
Exactly.
And so there are, little questions that I might ask just to feel a parent out of what might they need. And that is based off of this experience that I have and all of the learning that is taking place throughout my career. So I am just excited to be able to be part of this project and to have the next generation moving forward. And I love the fact that there's go-getters here. It's the only way it's going to go through.
Yes.
Do not give up that go-getting attitude.
Well, Kelly, it's something interesting that you mentioned. And we have learned that as well as as a foundation, this was very important for us. And I do want to express that, because Fundação Autismo has been a pusher for this project, it doesn't mean that it's only going to benefit children, who are autistic or on the spectrum. That is not the idea. I have tried to be very clear since I took the role, as the president of Fundação Autismo Aruba, that, I'm fighting for this group, yes, but at the same time, anything that I can do that will benefit a larger group, yes. I mean, why wouldn't I, right? And for those of you that have my email, and I always laugh because Dilma always shares this with other people. They're like, yeah, Carolina, the one with the really cute email, Fighter for Kids. And it has been my email for a very long time since I was studying, and that is something that I really believe in, and that's what we have really been working on. So what does it mean for Aruba, right? So in June, we were talking about what it hypothetically could mean at that time, thinking about what we thought was needed and what we, considering what we had, what we didn't know. At that point, we didn't know we had certain things or didn't have certain things. So now we have a much clearer view. And it has been great to be able to actively participate in the project as well. So not only as a foundation from the outside, but also as a professional, helping out with this project. And, of course, I would like to do more, but, we have a certain amount of time, so we work with that. But right now we are at the point where, like Anouk said, Aruba as a country has data that we didn't have before on childcare centers, so daycares as we are used to knowing them, right? This data really helped us take a look at what is going on with these children at these ages of 0 to 4. And, we noticed that they too, so the schools or the centers, are also struggling with wanting to help children reach their max potential in their development and their ages, right? But as Kelly said, sometimes they just don't know. They don't know what the child might be missing. They don't know what the child might need for that development to take place. Now we have a better idea. Something that we did is we adopted, let's put it that way. We adopted the CDC Milestone Tracker, and it's a checklist that parents, and I'm telling this to parents, go on their website if you want to check it out. And they even have an app. It's really great, actually, because it shows you what typically children should be doing at a certain age. And I say typically because, of course, every child is different, but it helps you kind of keep in mind if your child's development is going
on track. Is it
Yeah, is it on track or not? So Anouk kind of like figured out which would be the centers that could participate in this, and we presented to them, and it was very scary because we have no idea how they're gonna react.
Well, I must say that we did the baseline measurement, the first baseline measurement last year. And during the baseline measurement for all the daycares in Aruba, there was a question where we had asked if you give services to children with special needs, and that's where we got the list to work with for this pilot project. Hopefully in the future, we can work with all the child care centers, but for now, it's a little bit difficult because we have, I think, 120 child care centers in Aruba, so we're starting first with this pilot project, and the goal is to work with all of them in the future.
Yes, and I do have to say that the reaction of the centers that were invited to participate in the pilot project, again, like Anouk said, they weren't randomly picked. They were picked up on their own responses during this baseline measurement, which also gave us an idea of where they're at on, their services, their capacity, and also willingness to work with children who may possibly have special needs. And even then we were still like a little nervous of how the reaction might be because, we're going to ask them to basically help us determine if some children are falling behind in their development. And we were afraid that they might feel that we are in any way telling them that they are doing something wrong. So we were really good, I think, in explaining how the pilot project works.
I must say the feedback of the pilot group, the child care centers that we are working with is amazing. The cooperation, the collaboration is amazing. And I want to thank each and every one of you guys.
Yes.
You know who you are.
Yes. We're also in a group chat, yes.
You guys have no idea how much you form part of this project and how you will be changing lives of these children.
Yes.
Amazing.
And it was very heartwarming too, like Anouk said, like immediately they were on board. Like they didn't even, you know how sometimes people will ask like a bunch of questions before they say yes? But they were like, yeah. And we were like, oh, but we still have 2 steps left in like our slideshow. And they were like, yeah, but we're in. And we're like, we want to be sure.
Those are the type of people that we want to work with,
I will tell you, as a former childcare teacher, so I've done both early childhood and...
Kelly, what have you not done?
Exactly.
I know. I spent 15 years in the classroom with children with various abilities and various disabilities. And I have quite this, I have a wealth of stories that are just absolutely hilarious of things that happened to me that you would be like, no, every childcare teacher is going to go, wait, that's me. That doesn't just happen to me. But that's my point, is as a former classroom teacher, there were times where I would go home and just go, wait, how can I help this child? Today was awful, and I don't know what to do. And at that time, I did not necessarily have someone that I could call and say, hey, I'm having difficulties here. And then it just kind of eventually evolved, most likely when I was working on my own master's degree, and was really investigating children of various abilities and developing strategies. And I kind of created little case studies of the children that were in my classroom and then tried to figure out, okay, if I was the expert coming in, what would they tell me? What can I do? How can I help? And I will tell you, one of the biggest lessons I learned was sometimes things do not go right in the classroom because of something I may have done or something I may have said, and it was totally unintentional. Maybe I said something the wrong way, or I looked at a child the wrong way, and just because of what happened to them in the morning, maybe the bus ride was extra long, or they overslept and didn't want to come to school. Sometimes it wasn't things that I did, but sometimes it was in helping one child, it made another child upset.
Yep.
And when I finally realized, oh, wait, I'm not perfect. So, I will say that again because my husband would be like, whoa, she admitted that. No, I'm not perfect. And sometimes in helping one child, it hurt another child unintentionally. And when I figured out, it's okay to say to a speech therapist, hey, I need your thoughts on this. Or talking to a physical therapist saying, I noticed this and I'm just not sure how to help them. What can I do? When I was willing to do that and seek out those questions, right? I didn't know what I didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
Once I was willing to say that and open up, and I never had anybody say, oh, no, I'm not going to help you. If it wasn't the first person, then I would find a second person. Maybe that's why in this project,
I was going to say that's what I love about this project because we value each expertise, their feedback, their tips.
Right.
Anything.
Right. And we are building a system that is going to improve lives. And it's not only young children and their parents. It could be their grandparents. It could be the neighbors. It could be the community. It could be businesses. Anouk and I had a conversation last week about in helping young children, you are actually building your workforce in the next 20 years. That is the significance that I see.
Your community in all the ways.
And they become fulfilled employees, and they just strengthen your community. So you start, these skills at a young age, you foster them, you encourage them, and say, here you go. What's your dream? And encourage that.
Yep.
And it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see where we're at in 20 years because I'm a firm believer that this is going to go full force, and we are going to see so many young children grow up and to be such productive citizens of this country. And I have to say, I'm amazed at talking to the number of professionals who were born and raised here, went to other countries to study, and came back. They are so dedicated to the work that they do here that I am just enthralled and amazed by it. They don't even question it. They don't even question it. It's I'm going home. And as a parent of a child who is contemplating, leaving and going to a totally different state, I'm just like, no, stay home. Maybe that's why I admire it so much.
Yes, and I do have to say that I agree. A lot of young professionals really find themselves at crossroads, right? To choose either for, higher paying jobs in different countries, positions that don't even exist here, right? We also have that. Aruba is small, so the reality is that we will not have, the amount of diversity and work choices that you would have in a larger country. But still, you have a group of people that are really great at what they do and still choose to come back, knowing that might mean, that they might not grow as much in their career, that they might not earn as much, but because they genuinely want to invest that knowledge back into their community to create their community, a better one. And I think that we should really appreciate it. And I don't think that as a community we do that enough. I don't think that we give our young professionals the credit enough. And I know that you have met with different young professionals during this trip as well, so that you got that perspective even further. But I also meet so many of them either through the foundation or through projects, and I always ask them oh, why did you come back? They ask me the same thing. They're like, why did you come back? And we always laugh. And I realize that it's so nice to also find that having that in common and then joining forces to do something. I love having Anouk on board. It's it's so funny. I would just message her and Anouk, the foundation, we need to record some stuff and I need you to come. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm really busy, but I'm coming, And it's like,
10 hours later.
Yeah.
Hey, Carolina.
yeah. I'll like call her, send her voice notes, anything. Like, Anouk, please let me know. Or I just tell her, like, I scheduled you and it's at this time, that place, you know.
Right.
But it's nice that I know that I can count on her and you know, without necessarily expecting something back, in the sense of you know, we already know that it's a gain
Right.
because we are working towards the betterment of our community. So I'm definitely really happy to see it moving, but I also have people come from outside, right? From outside our bubble, and look at that and let us know that it is to be appreciated. So for those young professionals listening, you know, don't give up, and you are great, you're powerful, you know, beyond ways that you think you are. You just have to be persistent. Perseverance is very important, especially in our community. But yes, so I want to talk a little bit more of the details.
I was going to say, let's get into the juicy details. What people actually really want to know and
Yes.
what we need. I think we can use this platform.
Yes.
You know, especially if we have those young professionals listening.
The young
You see
professionals
how I
love.
sweet talk them first?
Hey, I come with many years of teaching at the collegiate level. Young professionals is that's part of the joy. It's not just working with the little people. It is working with the young professionals as well. Love it.
Yes. So, I think maybe we should talk a little bit about the assessment tools that we are going to be using. So, Anouk and I have licenses now. Should I call them licenses? I mean, we bought them, but...
Oh, yeah. Those licenses. Licenses was taking on a totally different meaning.
Yeah,
in my
no,
head.
not like a
Yes.
driver's license, not like that type
yes,
of license,
yes.
but license to use a tool.
Right. So you have a dedicated number of
Yes.
licenses to be using for the developmental assessment for young children, second edition,
Yes.
which is a normed referenced assessment that is used. So I have actually used it for many, many years. In full disclosure, I helped with the norming process when the DC2 was coming about. And we have been, you know, checking in, will there be a DC3 coming along down the road in a few years? So maybe as this is all coming together, you're going to fit right in there.
Yes.
So yes, you do have a certain number of licenses to be used for the professionals who are going to be administering the DC2 with young children. In the United States, the DC2 is used to what's called determine eligibility for young children to see if they will qualify for early intervention systems in the programs. There's a certain criteria, which it changes from state to state. Not every state uses the DC2, but it seems to be the easiest assessment to use, which I think is why you've chosen it. Not that easy is better, but to start, it's easier to use, and it still gives you really good information about the child and their development.
Yes, I was gonna say that just to clarify. And so this assessment will allow Anouk and I and other professionals that we determine in the future to assess children for, like what Kelly was saying, their developmental development. Yeah.
Right. So
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Where are they
So-
at in those 5 domains developmentally? Like, what is their
Where they're at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where are they at?
And like you said, I think it's important to mention because, you know, some of you may ask like, okay, what does that mean? Who should be doing different types of assessment? And I do want to explain that a little bit. So in Aruba, we are used to having either a psychologist or psychiatrist usually doing developmental assessments or diagnosis, right? For either a disorder, a delay, etc. This is great. I'm not saying that it is not. It is great. But what we have seen, and I think all parents that have a child who they may have wanted to test or assess have noticed that our waiting lists are very, very long. So what we were looking for during that project is something that can alleviate that, where you can already start working with the children to push their development forward while they may possibly be waiting for the next step, which might be, a diagnosis, but it could also mean that a child does not need a diagnosis, but simply needs like a push in an area of development. So I do think it's important to make that clear. So I think we should maybe explain what the 5 areas are, but just to give an idea, it's like a list of questions basically where parents answer, but also we get to observe to see if a child can or can't do certain things, and that will give us an indication together. It's a compilation of numbers that will give us an indication of what that child might need, and because it has those 5 areas, we may also be able to identify what are the areas that a child might specifically need more push in. And what I mean by push, because I also think I can hear parents saying, but who is going to give us this help? And yes, we are still working on, especially for the children that might need more clinical help. So anything like healthcare providers, but some children might just need stimulation at home and at the childcare center. So this is where we also want to empower parents and childcare centers to also be part of the process of getting that child to that level of development. But Kelly, maybe you can go into specifics of what those 5 areas are.
Sure. I have to always stop, and I typically go in alphabetical order. It's how I remember. So there's adaptive, which is self-help. So it deals with looking at how a child gets dressed or feeds themselves or uses the restroom. Sometimes I think there's some sleeping. I think sleeping falls under that area as well. The next one would be cognition. So how does a child think about those academic skills? So it could be talking about their favorite thing, although talking is going to go under communication. So cognition tends to be really difficult because it spans into all these different areas, and it kind of gets lumped in. But cognition is what does the child know? What are they familiar with? So it could be their favorite TV show. It could be their toys.
Their thought process as well.
Their thought process, right. So academic skills go into, for older children, would be things like matching and naming colors or counting. There's rote counting, which I love rote counting because it's where you take your index finger and you touch an item and then you count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's one-to-one correspondence. Rote counting is just where you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One-to-one correspondence is the index finger and counting. Sorry for that error. But, and then it leads into the numerals. So can they match numbers? Can they add, subtract? So that gets into really higher level things. But it's a really great example of how cognitive skills start at a very young age, and it lasts with you for your lifetime. So the communication is next, and communication is broken up into 2 different subdomains. There's receptive language, which is what do you know, how do you understand what someone is saying to you, and then expressive is the act of talking. And expressive can also lead into fluency issues. Where does a person speak clearly, or articulation errors and phonological errors about how they make their sounds. And you will see children where they might substitute an L sound for an R sound, and it's just the way their mouth moves. And it takes practice to talk. So from there you have physical, which is also 2 subdomains. You have fine motor, which is using your hands and that pincer grasp. And a pincer grasp is where you have items and you pick them up using your thumb and your forefinger. And then the second subdomain is gross motor. So that's sitting up independently, walking, crawling, making sure that the crawling pattern is the alternation between the right side and the left side with the arms and the legs. There's research that shows that crawling and the crawling pattern actually can affect how a child learns letters of the alphabet, how they read, and how they complete math problems when they become older.
Oh, wow.
So crawling is really important. And there are lots of families in the U.S. who say, my child never crawled. Isn't that great? They're a genius. Well, we actually go back and we will have them work on crawling because that patterning is so important. So that's an important skill to have. And then the final one is social emotional. And so how does a child react within their environment? It goes back to what you were saying, that stimulation, being able to work with peers. If something does not go their way, how do they handle that emotionally? Are they able to say, oh, okay, and can you move away? Or do they have temper tantrums, cry? My favorite is rolling around on the floor, because you just kind of look at them and go, what are you doing? And that kind of throws them off guard. But behavioral also goes under that. So if a family member says, yes, the child gets really, really upset because I don't know what they want. I was sharing the story with Anouk and Carolina the other day that I was talking with a family, and Mom said, I never know what they want to eat or drink. And as she says that, the child walks over to the pantry and just stands in front of the door like they were just waiting for her to wave a magic wand and for the door to open up for them to be able to get what they wanted. And when Mom didn't respond right away, now they're crying and yelling and screaming. So you can see them where the social emotional piece plays into the communication piece, which plays into the cognitive piece. And so for some children,
which makes it very complex.
Very complex and very difficult, because as the parent, you just want to go, what are you doing? It's like me looking at the child rolling around on the floor and going, why are you rolling around on the floor? But they just can't grasp those words. The same way we talked earlier about, I just don't know, to ask those questions. Young children have to learn those words. It's not uncommon for me to say to a child, use your words. It's not uncommon for me to say that to my husband sometimes. It's just use your words and tell me what you want, So, they have to learn those things. You have to teach them. Those are the 5 domains that the DC2 looks at. And then you combine the subdomains into the bigger domain. And then you take all of those 5 domains and then you calculate that total score, which then tells you, is the child above average? Are they average? Are they below average? And I would say those scores pretty much tell us how much support does that child need in a certain area. I've seen children where they're above average in one area, but they're below average in another. And guess what? That's okay. It just tells us they may need extra support in social emotional, and they can be fine in all of the other areas.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where what are they gonna end up needing comes in, right? Anouk, can you tell us a little bit about? Oh, before I go to Anouk.
I was gonna say you should read that comment.
Yes, so I got a comment from my husband, and he says, it was very nice to meet you, Dr. Kelly. Hope to see you again soon on the island. Keep up the good work, helping our kids for the betterment of their future, even though if that means that sometimes you have to do it in your pajamas.
Yeah. I'm going to have to post those pajamas.
Yes, please give us context. But yes, Anouk, so what would it mean, right? And we have been talking to professionals. You had different meetings today too. We have a pilot group that we're going to work with, and at some point we're going to have to identify what those needs are. Can you tell us a little bit of what those needs may be and what, ideally it would require for them to receive those needs?
Well, we don't have a criteria set yet. But before we go into that conversation, I just wanted to mention, because I think we skipped a part that is really important to mention. We did receive a total of 113 checklists back from the parents. And before starting the project, we did know that demand was very high for such a project or a system. And from those 113 checklists that we've received from parents, a total of 47 children scored below 80%.
Which means
that these 47 children, we have to do the second round, which is doing the DC2. And some of them, if they are between 16 months and 30 months, am I correct, Kelly?
Yep.
We can perform the MChat. And I don't know, Kelly, if you want to explain better what the MCHAT is.
Sure, I can do that.
Yes.
And I will say, one of the most important parts to all of this is none of these assessments are conducted without a parent consent.
Yes.
So parents, the involvement is mandatory because you have to have consent from the parents before you can assess the child. So the MCHAT is the modified assessment for children, infants, and toddlers, and it's an assessment for basically toddlers, children who are between 16 and 30 months of age, to determine their risk level. So I'm going to repeat that, risk level of being on the autism spectrum. Once again, the same way that your team is not necessarily going to be the person diagnosing the child in the United States, I cannot diagnose a child. A neurologist has to give a diagnosis if they are on the autism spectrum. However, I can have a parent complete the MCHAT and say, well, the risk level of a neurologist saying your child is on the spectrum is either low, medium, or high. So we have set it up to where if the parent responds and they give a medium or a high, then that's a conversation for them to kind of decide, do they want to seek out additional medical, support or not? And I will say everything with this is, it's what's called permissive. So once again, parents give permission. No one is saying this is mandatory, you have to do it. Even in the United States, anything with children who are not in kindergarten, it's a permissive program. Parents can choose or not choose. I always look at it as at least complete the assessment and become informed.
Exactly.
And see. And I will also say with assessments, it's only as good as the child performed that day, that minute, that hour. It's not necessarily saying 100% of the time your child is this.
Which is also important why we want the parents to be at the daycare with us when we start assessing these children, because it's very important to have the parents there to tell us, oh, they usually do this at home, or even the daycare teacher, oh, yeah, he or she does this here as well, but he or she is not doing it at the moment.
Right. As a parent myself of two grown children, I always looked at assessments as, are there concerns? Is there something that maybe here I am in the field, and I look at my children totally different than anybody else. I always say if a parent looks at their child objectively, then wait, we might need to think about something. Like my children are perfect.
Yes.
Right? My children are perfect. Everything is right. And so I always valued, what I ended up doing was I called up my friend who was the occupational therapist, and my friend who was the speech therapist, and my friend who was the physical therapist, and even my friend who was a special education teacher. And I would say, hey, will you come and look at my child? My husband is more concerned than I am. So once again, prove me wrong. I'm not perfect, right? Because as a mom, my children are perfect.
Yep.
So I always wanted to know, what did my child need help with? Where did they need support? But it's only for that moment in time where I, as a professional, am seeing what the child can do. That's why the parent involvement is so important. And that is the opportunity for parents to say, and it's okay to say, I wasn't really concerned about this, but I'm just not sure everything is right. Like, grandma made a comment, or my sister made a comment, my dad made a comment. They say I should be concerned, and I'm really not. Okay, well, let's assess them and
that's
see.
Okay.
And that is okay.
Yes.
Perfectly is okay.
And I think it's also important to understand that just because something came out, concerning maybe, or, needing attention at that moment, it doesn't mean it's going to stay like that forever. It gives you an opportunity to look at what might not be going, according to, average, and work on that, and that means some children might need more support than others, but it could simply mean that, even as parents look at the results, and even if their children are, average or above average, they might see little points where they say, this is something maybe to work on, maybe stimulate.
The extra push. And that goes to what you were saying.
Yes.
We didn't figure out the criteria yet.
Right.
But the point is that once a child is showing a challenging behavior, that goes back to what Carolina hopefully is going to be doing.
Yes.
And I don't know if you want to explain it since it's your cookie.
Yeah, sure. So basically what we want to do is case management. And I do have to say that we are very lucky to have a social healthcare system where a lot of services are covered. And I know parents of children with special needs that you feel that a lot of things are not covered. And that's where, we're working on. But what we do not have, or not to the point where it's sufficient for children with special needs, is that case management of all of those services coming together and genuinely keeping track if that child is meeting those goals and if everybody is working together. So we are working right now in little silos, and it's really depending on the professional how far they go into the communication with other professionals, with teachers, and even with parents. So you will have some professionals who do not, have a conversation with the parents on decisions, to just make a plan and then kind of hand it over to parents, and without understanding the parent's situation, can they or can they not follow this plan, right? So we want to work on that. So we want to have a place where, like Anouk said, ideally, you would have a case manager, like myself, for example, and just so you have an idea, I do have a healthcare background, but I also have a social background. So that's where, like Kelly said, you have like that perfect combination of being able to communicate with both sides, but where you can also sit down and hold people accountable. And when we say hold people accountable, we mean parents too. We mean childcare center teachers, hey, how's it going with those extra counting exercises that, maybe the speech therapist said that the child needs to count more out loud to make sure that the sounds are coming out right. So that's the idea. And we know that professionals, especially in the healthcare field, do not have the time to do this. So it's not something that we are telling them, oh, you're doing it wrong, we're expecting this from you. We are not. We just want to find a way of helping you as well do your job better, so that you can also have the satisfaction that your clients or your patients are reaching their goals. And that's like what Anouk said, for those professionals who are listening, the reality is that we need people. We need people to be willing to try out this, early intervention system, which means more intensive support to a group of children, to see what the results could be if we put in more energy and more time and also funds, right? Because it's really hard to ask for something if you can't prove that it works, which is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to prove that this could work for our island as well.
Yes, because after many research, we found out that there is a gap between 16 months, right?
16 to 18.
18 months until 4 years. And the reason why is because we don't have enough specialists.
Right.
So yes, social workers out there. So yeah, that's something that we figured out, right, Kelly, that the capacity is...
So capacity is an issue that does need to be addressed. However, it's difficult to address capacity when you don't have the data. That's why having this data is so important.
Yep.
Because you need to know how many
much
children,
more?
Right,
Yeah.
you need to know how many spaces are available from the professional that they can accept into their program. And it's a compilation of programs. It's not just one person, one program, because it is a multidisciplinary team.
Yep.
You have behavior analysts, you have physical therapists, occupational therapists, social workers, speech therapists, service coordination, government officials. Like, it really takes a lot of people to make the system come to fruition. And you have to have the ability to work together. And then I will say, anytime I write a DC2 report, my favorite part is at the very end of the report is, here's some strategies for you to use at home that you can do, whether your child meets our eligibility requirements to qualify for services, but more importantly, for the child who does not meet that eligibility requirement, you better believe I'm going to put in more strategies to be used by the child care teacher, by the parents, by the grandparents, by the neighbors. Go back to our list from earlier, because they need that practice, and it should be fun. Like, I never write something that isn't going to be fun for the family and for the child.
I love how you mentioned, even the neighbors and to our community listening. We do come from a community that is very friendly, but we are also very reserved with, our own challenges and struggles. We have the tendency to not ask for help or reach out. But for a system like this to work for our children, the children in our community to reach their maximal potential, everyone has to be committed. So, little things like if a child is practicing, their speech, and, make sure that you are involved and try to make a conversation. And I know that maybe you may feel frustrated because it takes a little extra effort, but be part of that as well. So we do want families who are listening to know that, it is important for you to have that conversation, especially for the other family members in the life of your child. Work on that, right? Yes. Make sure that you have them on board. Let them know that them being on board will make a difference. So yes.
Here comes a strategy, because I can imagine the families going, I don't want my neighbor knowing my child needs extra speech therapy.
I was going to say, can we please touch base of this taboo going on the island, and just the fact that I'm so happy that 113 parents filled out the
right?
checklist. I'm so happy, but I wanted all of them. Right?
Think about it. It goes back to what I said. This part of the conversation actually came from a parent on the island during the last podcast. Think about the significance of
being like daring, right? So daring to put it on a podcast comment, being like, I need this.
And I mean, it's free.
Right.
And so, why would you not do it? Why would you not want to know my child needs extra help in this area?
Yes or no?
We're not labeling anyone. Nope. If anything, the early intervention is going to help you not to diagnose,
Right. Or not to get labeled or mislabeled, because that happens a lot too. Mislabeling, because those crucial years were missed.
Right. So as a parent, once again, I like to believe my children are perfect, but they're not. And even though neither one of them qualified for any type of early intervention or special education services, they have their weaknesses. And so there were things that my husband and I needed to do to help our children go through their educational years from the moment they were born. That was something we were committed to do as parents. So, as a parent, if your child needs that extra support, and there are plenty of children who have a delay in an area, but they do not qualify for services. And guess what? That's okay too.
Yep.
But, you might just
But now
to,
you know,
but
and
now
you can
you
work
know.
on it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so if let's say they go to the neighbors and they play with the neighbor, and that's part of their natural routine. Great. Let them continue to do that. You don't have to say to your neighbor, oh, by the way, they qualify for services. But what you can say is, hey, the next time my child comes over, can you play a guessing game or I Spy? Memory games are so much fun. Children really love it. Or hide and seek and just finding items. Like some of
Or competitive games, right? If a child needs to work on the response to losing or not getting their way, those are little things that it does not require like intense, but just let me know how they react.
So you have to look at the age the child is for that to be an expectation. I would not expect a 2-year-old to handle it very well to losing at a game. But you're going to, it's part of natural life for things to not always go your way. So how do you set up some of those situations to where they're not going to get their way, but they can have the practice of not getting their way? So sometimes it's things like, what clothes are you going to wear today? Let them have a choice, between do you want the red shirt or the blue shirt? I always love 2-year-olds, especially children who are allowed to choose their own clothes, because they come out with like leggings and a tutu and a tank top and a tiara.
All at once.
All at once. They just look so cute that way. And there are plenty of parents that would say, oh, I'm so sorry my child looks that way. And I turn to parents and say, thank you for giving them the opportunity and the independence to choose their own clothes.
Which is helping their development so much. So it's so funny because you're talking about the blue shirt and the red shirt. So we have new neighbors and they have like 2 toddlers. And one of them is at the age, I think, probably like 2 or getting to 2. So, a little bit more independence. They get to walk to the car and stuff. But the little one is still like in between I may want to walk, I may want to get carried. So in the mornings, I always hear the mom, or not always, but they'll have days where it goes smoother than others. But you'll have the mom go like, okay, so do you want to be carried to the car? Or do you want to walk to the car? And then he'll say, I want to walk. And then the mom gets to the car, the sibling gets to the car, and he starts crying. And the mom said, you made a decision.
Right.
So that's why I let you choose. You chose this. And it's so funny because most of the time, he'll do it. He'll cry while doing it. But, but he does it. Right. So it's so funny because I love listening to that conversation, how she allows that child to work on those skills of choices.
Making decisions.
Right.
Yes.
Making those decisions. And it can be something.
Even how simple it sounds.
Right. It's hard.
It makes a big difference.
Right. It is hard. And you talk about picky eaters, do they get a choice? Do they get to help cook? Cooking is one of my favorite things to do with young children because there's fine motor skills, gross motor skills.
About a month ago, my nephew, I was telling him like, hey, I'm going to wash the dishes. He's like, Tanchi, I want to wash the dishes with you. And I was like, sure. I put chair. Kelly, the floor was completely wet. I was like, thank you for helping me. And inside I was dying because he didn't help me actually.
I know.
But it was cute because he thought that he was washing the dishes and helping me.
Chalk it up as a sensory experience to be able to play in the water. That in itself is...
Yeah, and then he had to wait his turn because I'm like, I'm washing, you're rinsing. It was so nice, but he was rinsing the whole floor.
I love it.
Yeah, he's cute.
All right, so we have to start to wrap up. So I'm going to look at you, Anouk. What do you want to leave us with today? And I promise everybody who's listening, we will have a follow-up talk, okay? Because we know that this is important and we will keep you, I promise, updated. Maybe the next time we will be in the Stima Un Autista podcast. So we will mix it up a little bit, but we will keep you posted on how this pilot project is going. But yes, Anouk, what do we still need?
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what do you want me to get out of it? I was like, I can't choose. Like, there's so many things.
No. What do we still need to make this even, more successful? And what do you want to ask Aruba's community and professionals?
We need money. We
Yes,
need
we do.
money, and we're working on that.
Yes.
We didn't mention that. We are going out for international funds. We are still working on data, and that's going to help us a lot. And thank you, Dr. Kelly, for being very persistent in that and made me realize that we should not only rely on the government and the parents, but we can go outside because there's plenty of money outside.
Right. It's knowing the right person who has the right checkbook at that moment. There are grants that people can seek out. So that's what we are in the process of investigating. And there are funds for global research initiatives and projects, which is right at my heartstrings to be able to develop some really fun research and to think about Aruba could be setting up some examples globally.
Yes.
Like not here.
With our names on it.
Yes. So, not just here, but for other countries, including the United States.
Yes.
Because not everything
Yes.
is perfect in the United States either.
Yes, so I just wanted to say that I was very honest. We need money, and obviously, like we've mentioned, we need capacity and we need more professionals. I do have faith, and we are working very hard. And I know in only a year we did more than
There has ever been done. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for those little kids that are listening to us, like we're working very hard to make your life easier, and you deserve it because
Yes, you do.
can't imagine how they're feeling, in Aruba that
Their needs are not being met.
yes,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
yes, exactly. And then what I want to ask the community is to just talk about these uncomfortable conversations, like Carolina mentioned at the beginning of the show, and educate yourself and ask. Because, like you said, there's no stupid questions. Sometimes it's the basic things that I don't know.
Right.
And we didn't even talk about inclusion, but that's in the next
Yeah, no,
podcast,
we have
so-
enough time to talk about
So
inclusion.
that would be the next time. So
Yes.
definitely that is what I would ask the community, and especially now during the holidays that we've been working on tips on how to, include and be aware of children on the spectrum. Definitely having that conversation and accept these children.
Yes. And just to add on that, if you are a professional and you think that you have something to provide us, share with us, right? Be it some of your time, be it some of your knowledge, if you can help us out and you're willing to work on this pilot project on gathering data that will benefit, I am sure, your profession as well, please do reach out.
And you know how to
Yes, how to find us. Anouk for sure. And now you know how to find me, right? If you're listening to this podcast, you already know.
Carolina,
So-
you're everywhere, so I'm sure they know how to contact you. And I forgot, very important, thank you, Social Crisis
Yes.
Fund, that is funding this and is believing in this project.
Yes.
Also the ministers and Sue Andras and Sorella Cruzay, they are
Yes.
also part of the team. So.
It's a very awesome team. So again, professionals, and I know we're all trying to make a living, and a good living, but I promise you, and I tell you this sincerely, genuinely, that you would be surprised how much more you can gain from giving just a little. So yes, we are all professionals and we appreciate that, but I promise you that there is added value in you just either donating your time, be it in services or in, knowledge. So please. But yes, Kelly, what would you want our listeners to know before we close?
So I think I want to say, once again, thank you for letting me come back, and thank you for having me on this podcast.
Love having you.
again.
Thank you for accepting.
Yes, anytime. And I think about this as, a triangle. You have the child, you have the professional, you have the parents. So even the little people that you mentioned, if they have an unmet need and they want us to know, they can tell us. I would be really interested in posing the question to young children and saying, what do you need? Same way with parents. What do you need? Same thing with professionals. What do you need? What do you need to make this work? I am not here to tell you how to do it. You are going to tell me. I'm just going to help you get there.
Yes.
That's my role in this.
And you
I
have
say
been...
let's finish there. Like
Yes, you have been
Closing.
awesome at that, Kelly. So, yes.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you once again, Anouk and Kelly, for indeed being here today talking about this. So I have this thing that I do in my podcast.
I see
Yes.
surprises.
So I have this thing I have in my podcast where I give my guests kindness cards. So, like I already said, my show is about education, so I don't just randomly invite people. I choose people based upon, a position that they're in, that I believe in, a message that they're sharing that I want to continue sharing. So I got these kindness cards from Paper Sisters, and I loved them immediately. And I said, okay, so I bought them first, and then I was like, what am I gonna do with this? And then I was like, I'm gonna share kindness in my show and encourage all of you to do the same. So I have one for Anouk, and it says, dream on, pretty lady. Anouk, you dream a lot.
Was this randomly selected?
No, I
was
went
like,
through it. I try to pick the ones that speak to me, if I think of that person. Okay. So you are a big dreamer, and you are going, you pursue your dreams all out, and all of your dreams, not just one, but all of them. And I really admire your dedication. So I want to encourage you to continue, because I think you're inspiring a bunch of people out there, that you can do it all, right? You can be a good person, you can do good work, and also do what you love. So thank you for being that example.
Oh my God, I'm crying.
Yes, Anouk gets a little emotional, so I'm trying not to make her cry.
That's true.
But yes, I have one here for Kelly. Kelly, please don't forget to have fun. So we took Kelly out last night. No, the night before last night, on Saturday. And I asked Kelly, what did you do this Saturday? And she worked. And I told her, Kelly, you do so many great things. You need to have fun too. So
I did go to the beach yesterday.
okay, I'm so happy to hear that.
I went to the beach. Yes.
I see that you're a little sunburned, not too much,
Not
but
too much.
I
Not
see
like
a
last
little.
time.
No, not like last time. But yes, so I want you to
that's so
remember
sweet.
this. Yes, do not forget to have fun.
Oh, thank you so much. And you were right. During stressful times, you need to have fun.
Yes.
And you cannot just bury yourself into negativity and work. So thank you for the reminder.
Yes. All right. So once again, thank you for tuning in. Remember that you can win fun prizes. For those of you who are watching, remember to like and share and comment, and, shout out to our marketing lady, Carolina. Her name's Carolina too, which is funny. But thank you for helping me with this. It has been a pleasure doing these giveaways with you. And remember to stay tuned for Learn and Win Wednesday. Once again, thank you to my awesome sponsors, Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Purina, Aveeno, Gelatissimo, and Paper Sisters. Oh, by the way, I didn't even tell you. So I'm starting this big giveaway campaign for December. And what I want you to tell me is what you have learned during the last 30 episodes of Sincerely Carolina. So you can just pick something that really stuck with you, share it. Write a post, write it on your story, do a little story, I don't know. Tag me, send it to me so I can see it, and you will participate to win really nice prizes from our awesome sponsors, okay? Also, thank you to Sopi Mix Studio for making this possible, and to Sopi Mix Studio's sponsors for allowing this space for people like me to share things that we love. So thank you to Subway and to Swing Masters. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you again next week. Remember, be nice. Even if we don't like things that we see, be nice. I'm telling myself to. But yes, I will see you next week. Have a good week. Anouk is laughing. She knows how I have to contain myself sometimes, right? Kelly knows too. But yes, let's be nice, people. I will see you again next week, and stay pending for the fun
Bye.
giveaways.
Bye.
Bye.
Sincerely Carolina is powered by Lindy Boutique, Proframe, Aveeno, Gelatissimo, Paper Sisters, and Purina.